Hi, I'm Jack, and the story I'm sharing with you today is incredibly painful and embarrassing. It has to do with the way my erectile dysfunction shamed, humiliated, and almost ruined my entire marriage and life. Now, the only reason I'm willing to tell you about this is because during this dark and awful chapter, I was about to uncover the truth about ED that no one else is giving you. The real root cause of ED has nothing to do with low testosterone levels. In fact, according to research from Columbia University and various Ivy League universities, if you are taking testosterone supplements to eliminate your ED, then you may have been lied to. And more importantly, in this quick video, you are about to discover how I managed to cure my ED for good within hours without taking male enhancement pills, expensive heart-destroying drugs like Viagra, which does nothing for the real root cause of ED, or paying over $2,000 for ineffective low-T therapy that only works on less than 5% of men, giving me the ability to enjoy full, long-lasting erections literally on demand. I was able to turn back the clock and blast off with rock-hard erections that gave my wife more unadulterated pleasure than she's felt in years. I'm talking about those kind of almost too big but every girl loves them erections that you had when you were younger. Remember those? Well, after applying the method for yourself, you'll begin experiencing the most powerful, long-lasting, and full erections of your life. And it doesn't matter what age you are, whether you struggle with full-blown ED or even if you don't have a problem and just want to add a massive surge of vitality to your sex life. And yes, if you're skeptical, I totally get it. I would be too. In fact, before I dug out the truth, just like probably every other guy, I had to hang my head in shame by those little blue pills and hope and pray they really worked and that I would finally win in the bedroom again. However, you need to watch this right to the end immediately. This video could be removed at any time because they do not want me revealing their secrets. Why? Because the only folks who are winning right now are big companies and the billions they make profiting from our ED shame. So if you want to change all that, please watch until the very end right now. If you don't, you're going to miss out for good. And now in just a moment, I'm going to explain to you the simple science behind my discovery and show you how to address your own ED issues with a simple yet proven technique. It's a way to finally get your sex life back on your own terms. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Jack Bridges. I'm 52 years old and I currently live in Lincoln, Nebraska. It was nearly 4 years ago to the day that my wife Anna lifted that knife to my manhood. As you can imagine, it was totally unexpected, especially since it happened on her 50th birthday. I had known that turning the big 5-0 was hard for Anna, but I had no idea what was really going on inside her head. I thought it was just the typical getting older stuff. Buying her really nice jewelry has always worked in the past, so I saved up to score her a brilliant diamond bracelet. She'd been eyeing it for months, so I was sure it was going to do the trick. Boy, was I wrong. I planned to take her to a nice dinner on her birthday and give her the bracelet for dessert. However, it was a slow day at work, so I chose to come home early and surprise her. Little did I know, it was going to be me who was the recipient of the biggest and most painful surprise that day. Of my life, actually. I wanted to make the most of the surprise, so I parked in front of the neighbor's house and snuck in through the back door. In one hand, I had the bracelet all wrapped up, and in the other, I had a big bouquet of her favorite flowers. I was pretty proud of myself. This was going to be a great birthday after all, I thought. As I tiptoed through the kitchen, I heard her talking in the other room. I peered around the corner and realized she wasn't just talking. She was crying, and she was crying really hard. She was sitting on the sofa with her friend Jean, who had her arms around her, comforting her. And that's when it happened. She cut me to the core, so deeply, and all in a flash. Yes, I love him, she explained to Jean. He's a good man. And we've been married for almost 30 years now, but if I'm being really honest, I just miss sex. I mean, I really, really miss it. More than that, I miss having a real man. I feel terrible for saying it, but it's true. As I was sinking to my knees in horror, she continued, he just can't do it to me the way he used to anymore. He was the first man ever to give me real pleasure. Now it's almost as if he doesn't know I'm a woman anymore. It makes me feel so unattractive. Will I have to go unsatisfied for the rest of my life? I felt like I was going to be sick when she struck the final blow. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but when I'm out, I get hit on all the time by other guys, and I really like it. And when I'm alone, I find myself thinking about these other men and what it would be like to spend the night with them. I'm not sure that I'd actually do it for real, but it's very tempting. That's when it felt like she had a knife in her hand and sliced my manhood clean off. My heart hit the floor with a painful thud. Those few seconds felt like an eternity, and that pain seemed to become more unbearable with every word she spoke. I'm not sure how I got out of the house or how I ended up in the parking lot in front of Starbucks, but there I was. I was sickened. I was horrified. I was angry. I don't know if anyone has ever challenged your manhood, but when your wife of nearly 3 decades says you're not a real man when she pictures being with other men, then there is no lower or worse feeling. Like you've let down the only person who matters in life, that you can't even satisfy your own wife. I thought I was going to be physically sick right there in the car. Problem was, she was right. If I was being really honest, my fear of being able to get an erection, not to mention regular and fully hard ones, and to keep them up, had totally killed our sex life. Sure, we slept in the same bed, but since it was becoming more and more difficult to get hard, I pretty much had given up. And while the ED pills my doctor prescribed seemed to work at first, there were just too many side effects. And it wasn't just the cramps, headaches, diarrhea, or chest pain. At nearly $8 a pop I was spending just to get hit or miss results. And if you've had to do it, you know there's nothing more humiliating as a man than having to stand in the pharmacy line to get pills because you can't get it up anymore. Talk about not feeling like a real man. It was awful. But it was also a catch-22. If I didn't use the pills, I was almost sure I wasn't going to have an erection. Even when I did, the results were not guaranteed. On more than a few occasions, I started sex and then had to roll over totally ashamed because I was limp and as wet as spaghetti noodle. And I couldn't even please my own wife. It was a train wreck, and it was one of those things that you just don't talk about either, which made it 10 times worse. It's important for you to know, just like my wife had said to her friend, I used to be able to get big, hard, and lasting erections whenever I wanted, but the last 2 years I've never had any problems like this. I guess I took that as a sign of my manhood. It wasn't uncommon for me to have sex daily or even multiple times a day, and to be able to please my partner over and over again, and to lose that, well, it hurts deeply. And that's how I've gotten myself into this mess, and how I ended up sitting in front of Starbucks thinking about my life. How did all this happen? What's wrong with me? Why did this have to be so difficult? Was all this just a natural part of aging? If so, getting older was going to suck. Truth is, I had no idea. But what I did know was that I couldn't live knowing my wife didn't think of me as a real man. Whether it was humiliation, pride, or just love for my wife, I chose right then and there to do everything I could to regain my manhood, to wipe out my erectile dysfunction, and to put an end to this ugly chapter of my life. And heck, I just love sex as much as the next guy, so I was determined, and heck, I loved sex just as much as the next guy, so I was determined to figure out what these traditional prescriptions for ED were really doing, and more importantly, see if I could find any other solutions that could work without all the side effects and high costs. Over the next month, I spent almost every evening in my home office for hours and hours digging through the internet searching for an answer, any answer I could find. Did locking myself in the office help our relationship? No, not at all. In fact, it made things worse than they already were. I think she was afraid I was having an online affair or was just avoiding her. Or, well, who knows? All I do know is that I tried to do what I could to let her know I loved her. You see, I was obsessed. I'd convinced myself that finding a cure, something natural, something I was overlooking, something that just had to be there, was going to make this difficult time totally worth it. If I could just find a way to end my ED, everything would be okay. That's what I was telling myself. Because it doesn't matter how young or old you are, if you don't have a healthy sex life with your partner, you risk everything. Because without it, you're nothing more than platonic roommates, right? I needed Anna to know she turned me on as much today as she did 30 years ago. And that's why I just had to figure this out. As you can imagine, I ran into lots of roadblocks and obstacles. At the same time, I uncovered some shocking information. What kind of information, you ask? Well, for starters, it turns out that those low-T erectile dysfunction therapies you hear about all the time on TV and in magazines actually work on about 5% of the men. 5%. Doctors at Columbia and other respected universities have shown that not only do low T treatments not benefit the majority of men, but these injections, creams, and gels that can cost up to $2,000 are connected with fun things like heart attacks, blood clots,